I'd like to call to order this April 15th, 2024 regular session meeting of the Cinnaminson Township Committee. It is now called to order. Please everyone rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231. Notice of this meeting was published in the Burlington County Times and the Courier Post on January 8th, 2024. A roll call vote, Madam Secretary?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Horner?
Here.
Mr. McGill?
Here.
Mr. Seaver?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Cradwell?
Present.
Mayor Kondo?
Here. We'd like to start this evening with a presentation. The New Jersey Department of Transportation is completing a concept development study to improve the pedestrian and bicycle safety along Route 130, north of Main Line Drive, as well as improvements to the intersection of Route 130 and Taylor's Lane. Representatives of their design team are here to discuss the proposed improvements. Folks, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to get done.
Good afternoon. I'm James McAllister, the project manager from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. We're happy and pleased that you're accommodating us this afternoon so we can present to you the details of our study. I have with me Mike Drobny from Franco Perello, who is leading the study, and he is going to actually make the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's that.
I'm not taken. Mr. Mayor, Council, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Good evening.
I do have some handouts of the presentations as well. Just to make it a little easier for you guys to follow. See, I know the out. Yeah, I was just out. It's just like that. Now that the meeting started, the laptop went to sleep. There we go. But hearing standing there. There we go. All right. So I'll give you a quick introduction. As James said, James is the project manager for the department on this project. I'm Mike Drobny. I'm the project manager for Franco Perello. We're the consultant for the project. I have Juliana Leon with me here as well tonight, and she's actually going to get into some of the details of the project a little bit. But just a real quick overview. The department follows what's called the concept development process when they get federal funding for a project. And it's a requirement of the federal process. You start with study, look at different alternatives for what design ideas you come up with. You then, the DOT reaches out to the public as part of the process of it. Their experts look at the different options that came together, picking what's called the preferred alternative. Again, we come and discuss it further with you guys, with your professionals, and then the project gets advanced into the design phases from there. So we're really at the point where we're kind of at the tail end of the concept development process. Kind of one of the last steps is, getting the blessing of the municipalities. The DOT really, contrary to what people may say, the DOT does try to communicate with the townships what's going on with their projects. And like I said, we have been talking with your professionals kind of throughout this process. So here we're really tonight to tell you kind of what the department internally has selected as the preferred alternative to advance to the design process, with the hope being that the township supports that, and ultimately would be looking to the town to adopt the resolution of support for the project to get advanced forward as well. So with that being said, I'll have Juliana come up and kind of talk you through some of the details of the job. Maybe I'll hang out over here and be the IT guy. Here goes the on that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Juliana. I'm going to talk about the project more in depth. So first we have the project location. The project is going to go from the intersection of Mainline Drive and Andover Road, which is by Sam's Club and the Walmart, in Cinnaminson, down to Delran by the Rancocas Creek Bridge. You can go to the next slide. So here we just have an aerial view of where our project location is, so it's better for everyone to see that. Mike, you can switch sides again. Okay, so this is a full scope concept development study with the focus on improving safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, as well as traffic safety and operations. In the years of 2017 to 2020, there were 7 crashes involving pedestrians, 2 bicycle crashes, and 4 fatal accidents, 2 of which were pedestrians and 2 were vehicular crashes. And this resulted in this corridor being rated very high on the scale for pedestrian crashes. The goal of this project is to advance safety improvements focused on bicycle and pedestrians, as well as traffic safety and operations. The objectives of this project are to provide FHWA-proven countermeasures to improve safety, address the factors that impact the higher than average crash rate, improve pedestrian accommodations, which include ADA curb ramps, completing missing segments of sidewalk within the whole entire project length, and providing driveway access or driveway crossings. We are going to upgrade traffic signals to current NJDOT, MUTCD, and ADA design standards, and we are also going to improve bicycle safety, intersection lighting that will go up to NJDOT standards, and traffic operations at signalized intersections will also be improved. We have been having meetings with local officials through Cinnaminson and Delran for this project and came up with a bunch of different alternatives to fix the project limit since November 2nd of 2022. The alternative that was chosen was a 10-foot wide shared use path. This will be running along the northbound side of Route 130. We will be maintaining existing lane width and shoulder widths throughout this project. We will, where is this? I think it's at Taylor's Lane. The traffic signal timings will be optimized, and that'll also be per every intersection. If there's things needed to be done at those, we'll get those done. At Route 130 and Taylor's Lane, we are going to create a lead left phase for cars turning eastbound from Taylor's Lane to Route 130 northbound. We have chosen this project because it meets all the project purpose and needs. It is a safe route for both bicyclists and pedestrians to be outside of the roadway, which is desired for such a high speed and high volume roadway. The construction cost is around $7.5 million, and New Jersey DOT subject matter experts support this alternative over all the other alternatives that were designed. So it might be hard to see on here, but the thick orange lines that are on the sides of the road, that's going to be the proposed shared use path. The dark gray, which is, hold on, where is that? It is by Union Landings Road. That's where we're going to improve the turn radius because there was a lot of large truck traffic in that area. So it was decided to fix the turn radii there. The blue driveways are all driveways that are impacted by this project, and that will most likely get fixed. And then there's also yellow driveways. Those have no impacts and don't need to get fixed. And then in the green, I think on the bottom part of the map, there are parking spaces that are going to get removed, and those are in front of commercial businesses. So within this alternative, we're going to complete the missing sidewalk segments. All curb ramps will be brought up to ADA compliance. We are going to paint or stripe the crosswalks high visibility. They're going to upgrade and replace traffic signals and modify timings to improve operations. There will be an installation of backplates on all traffic signals. And then down in the Delran section of the project, there will be improvements made at the intersection of Route 130 and Creek Road. And then, like I had said before, we're going to improve the corner radius at Route 130 and Union Landing Roads for larger trucks. And then we're going to upgrade traffic signals and median openings at mid-block crossings, and we're going to install crash cushions at each end of the median barriers. So in the construction staging and MPT portion of this project, all the stage construction will occur with within the shoulder and or one lane closed during work hours, which will most likely be overnight or during in the middle of the day. Again, in the Delran section of the project, there will be a detour at Creek Road and Bridgeboro Road for the ramp traffic during the intersection modifications. All commercial driveways access will be coordinated with the property owners. This work will most likely get done at night just so that we don't impact their businesses. For the right-of-way, there will be 5 partial fee takings, 36 permanent sidewalk easements, and over 80 driveway aprons will be getting reconstructed. There will be up to 6 commercial properties that will get impacted, but will all depend on the grading designs during the final design phase of this project. For the utilities, there will be 8 utility poles that will be relocated, along with new lighting will be installed at the traffic signals. For environmental, there will be a flood hazard and freshwater wetlands permits that are needed for a bridge extension near Haynes Mill Road. There is a categorical exclusion anticipated under the NEPA. And major development requiring stormwater management will have a pervious path with a stone bed to absorb and recharge runoff. And there will be soil testing will be done during the final design phase. For our schedule and for our next step, we're going to obtain the resolutions and support from the municipalities. We're going to hold a public information center, which we're hoping will be done in May of this year. We're going to complete the CD report, and NJDOT will approve the CD report and authorize advancement to the preliminary engineering. We're hoping that the CD will be done in summer of 2024, preliminary engineering in fall of 2024. We'll have a final design by fall of 2026, and then we're hoping that the construction will start in 2029. Does anyone have any questions?
I was going to say, I know she covered a lot there.
She did,
Which definitely want to give you guys a chance to ask some questions. And kind of just stepping back, like she said, the project really started as from the bicycle pedestrian unit at DOT, just because of the history of pedestrian messes out here. So that's why really the main focus of the project is how do we improve safety, and particularly for bicycles and pedestrians. And that 10-foot path, if you go by DOT's design standard, because we've got 50,000 cars a day on this road, you've got 50-mile-an-hour speeds, depending what type of hags people speed in general. The design standards basically call to get bicyclists and pedestrians out of the road at that point. Because right now, if you're on your bike, you have to ride in the shoulder. The sidewalk's not wide enough for a bike. So what the 10-foot path does is, becomes a shared use pad, or, is kind of the popular term for it. So this way, bikes and pedestrians can ride on that path instead of having to be in the shoulder. We did look at the potential of putting it on both sides of the road. That really the problem that runs into on the northbound side, there is a little bit more space, more of a green strip that's there right now. The southbound side, there's a lot more stuff that's like right up to the curb. Really would have impacted more properties more significantly. And, for your guys' point of view too, probably 80 to 85% of the job is actually in Delran. Just, we're just at the very north end of town here. So even, the right-of-way discussions, the utility pole relocations, things like that, a large majority of that actually happens in Delran. But obviously, the project as a whole, that's all part of the overall project.
Go right ahead.
The part of the project when you're going down and the grade areas where the driveways for traffic going in and out, what does that look like for a car that's either going into one of those driveways or exiting?
Which driveways in particular?
Well, when you were showing the plan, there was grayed out areas along the path, which signified an entrance or an exit coming out of a parking lot. What does that look like to a driver? Is it marked off in any way as you're going past?
Really
going
what
through
it
those
would be
areas?
is that, I mean, typically, you know, and like your engineer could tell you, when you have like a concrete apron at a driveway, you usually have like a flat area where the sidewalk would go across the driveway. That would be the intent here. If the driveway has a concrete apron, we would redo the apron to get that flat crossing for the path to go across it. If it doesn't have an apron, they would redo the curbs and make sure that there's handicap ramps there, so that, again, you know, the idea being to improve the accessibility. It's not to close driveways or move driveways or anything like that. It's really just to improve the accessibility crossing.
Markings or anything that would be on the notice.
Yellow
Most
or-
likely not,
No.
just because they're not public streets.
Gotcha.
See that? All these.
With regard to the Taylor's Lane Route 130 intersection, it says there will be a lead left phase for cars turning from eastbound Taylor's Lane, not westbound?
Not what, so when we, I know, you know, we've been talking with your engineer all along, and one of the studies they did last year was, I guess, as development is coming up Taylor's Lane, was some interim or, you know, potential improvements for that intersection. And one of the recommendations was for that turn going on to 130 northbound, just to be able to clear out, you know, at least get a couple of cars cleared out before the westbound traffic starts coming. I think just from a traffic operations perspective, I think timing wise, it actually probably decreased the level of service if you tried to do the lefts both ways.
Okay.
Because what we can do now in this scenario, since it's just the eastbound left, you can have the left and the through eastbound start at the same time. Whereas if you had if you had both lefts going at the same time, you have to have a phase that just those left turns. So, and that's not the way the timing is set up. Everybody just goes right now. There is no lead. So having that lead will just help flush those couple of cars out of there, making that left a starter. So I don't think I don't remember offhand, but I think from a traffic perspective, I don't think the westbound left really made any difference operation.
Okay, well, I mean, if eastbound is going to go green and left turn green at the same time, it should do something to clear that intersection for the westbound traffic. Just another thought for that intersection, and I know this is not in the plan, but it's just food for thought. Every time I'm at this intersection, I am actually going southbound I'm facing eastbound, but I'm turning on the southbound 130. It would be wonderful to have a right turn lane there, but that's going to require acquisition of some real estate. And I don't know that that's even, that could even be considered.
I mean, it's something we could look at.
And I don't know, I mean, you guys have the traffic studies. I don't know what the benefits of that are, but me as a guy sitting behind the wheel, it could help, but that's not going to be an easy a fix as the lighting.
Right, because the parking lot for the Wawa is pretty close up to.
And, I mean, you would need to acquire the piece of Wawa that has the monument sign on it.
Right.
So that's a heavier lift than I think you guys are willing to undertake, but it's just food for thought.
Well, I mean, and again, that's part of the reason why we have these, we come out in front of you guys and your professionals and stuff is, to hear what ideas you guys have and what, we may not have thought of that would be important to you guys. But I mean, that's definitely something we could evaluate. Because at this point, like I said, really what we're doing is we're coming to you guys. We're actually going to Delrane's council meeting next week, doing the same presentation with the idea, hopefully, we come out of these meetings with, support for the project from the town. But at this point, if we still want to make any adjustments to this preferred alternative, now's the time when we would make those adjustments. Because after we go through this process, the department has to, like I said, internally presents this to the feds who would ultimately be paying for it, and saying, here, we thought this out. We'll listen to everybody's concerns. We incorporated it as best we could within the scope of the project. Now here's what we want to move forward with, and then that's kind of when everybody's set, and here's what we're going to do. But like I said, there's no reason we couldn't look at the impacts of what happens. And like you said, if it's right away and it's moving a sign and it's, something happens to the parking lot grading wise or whatever it might be, then we could say, okay, we looked at it, but here's the downfalls with it. And yeah, it's probably more of a headache than the benefit.
No, I get it. So a pedestrian overpass is out of the question. I'm hoping that.
Talk to James. His boss is the one paying the bills. So.
I'm hoping that the improved crosswalk striping and ADA curbing and the light retiming will give an old guy like me plenty of time to get across the road without having to play Frogger with these cars. Exactly, me and my walker. I think that's all I have. I mean, just the sound of improved pedestrian and bicycle safety is, that's music to my ears, particularly in this town where the highway runs right through the middle of it.
And even, like I say, even the data that she referenced, was kind of from when originally the project started. We know that there's been, pedestrian accidents and fatalities that have occurred since then. Even in just talking to Delran's police chief is like, yep, another pedestrian, 6 months ago or whatever it was, there was another pedestrian accident. He's like, it's not something that's going away. It's obviously something that needs to be addressed. So, which hopefully we can help out a little bit.
I appreciate that.
Anyone else have
Can I ask a
anything?
question? Can I ask one?
By all means.
Union Landing Road, what is going to be done for that? You said you're going to increase the turn radius?
So with the
for
pilot
trucks?
there, the idea being we can open up that right turn
Okay.
a little bit just to kind of help the trucks get in.
Yeah.
So, because I don't think they did anything there when they put the truck stop in, right? Yeah.
And that's currently under some sort of construction at this point too. There's sidewalks going in there.
Yeah, and they're doing pole work too.
Okay.
The SDG is doing pole work.
So I'm not sure what will precede you going in there to tear it up again.
Well,
But it might be easier.
yeah, and I mean, and again, based on the schedule, like I said, it has to just go through the process
Right.
at this point is what it is. That's why, like you said, you see the schedule on there and you're like, oh, it's 5 years from now until construction starts. Now, if we move through the design process faster, sure, hopefully we can get it out ahead of time, but there is going to be right-of-way acquisition involved and things like that are just going to slow, which is why, we typically give, call it 18 months to 2 years for each, the preliminary and then the final design, knowing that we got to get permits, we got to get right-of-way, we got to get things like that, that just have long lead times with them.
No, understood. Go right ahead.
In terms of the length of the improvements, how much is in Cinnaminson and how much is in Delran about?
Like I said, I bet you it's probably at least 80% of it is in Delran. So, just because, we really are just picking up this very north end of it and Cinnaminson here, but, because even, like the Creek Road intersection she talked about up by Bridgeboro and up by the bridge right there, like that's probably, from a geometric highway layout perspective, that's really the biggest thing that's happening. Because right now, if you come off of Creek, you can come on Fen Creek Road and you can come off of the 130. They kind of crisscross each other. We're going to get rid of that crisscross just to kind of, again, just make it safer moving through there. But yeah, a large part of the project is definitely bid duck.
Does anybody mind if we open it up to? Do we have to do anything to open this up to the public?
I didn't think,
I think there are people with hands up at this point.
You can actually change the order of the agenda to just open up to public comment now
Or
on
can we-
this issue.
or can
Yes,
we
you
open
do
up
that,
public
sure.
comment just on this issue?
Sure.
All right.
Do you have to motion anything on here?
we just,
Yeah.
I do a motion.
Okay. Can I have a motion to get on this agenda, public comment on this presentation only?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay, now we need a motion to open public comment on this presentation
I'd
only.
like to make a motion to open public comment.
And I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, public comment is open on this presentation item only. Come on up. You know the way it works. Name and address for the record, and feel free to ask your question.
You guys are good.
Yeah, thank you.
Jamela Shepherd, 215 Front Street in Palmyra, New Jersey, speaking on behalf of the Civic Club of Cinnaminson, East Riverton, and Palmyra. Mr. McGill, I had asked the question, and I didn't hear the end of it. And I wanted to know, did I hear it right, that the end of Route 1, the end of Union Landing and Route 130, the only thing that was going to be done at that intersection was to make it wider for the trucks. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct, ma'am.
Okay, because I just didn't hear. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pet project.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
That's right, pet project. First of all, Ben Young, 116 Woodview Lane. When you say the northbound side of the road, which is the northbound side of the road in terms of the north side of the road for the easement? Is it towards the river or towards the ocean?
Towards the ocean. Long way to the ocean, Ben. Yeah.
Well, it isn't.
Even though it is east
So
and
you're
west,
so you're saying at Mainline Drive it would affect the shopping center and not the Marion Caterers?
It's not going up that far.
I thought he said Mainline Drive is where it started.
Andover.
Oh, Andover.
Yes. So it'll
Okay.
affect Pandora.
All right.
Roswell, so it'll affect.
So it'll start up that end. And that's why it's going to take the parking places like out in front of Pat's
Yeah.
and those places. How does the town go to look at that when we insisted that they have those parking places?
I'm sorry?
How's it going to look when the town insisted they have those parking places? What are we going to leave them with?
It depends on what the final plan looks like, I think.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cut that whole end off those front of those. But the Taylor's Lane is the most interesting. When you're saying left going northbound, you're telling me that those are the people coming up Taylor's Lane that we all keep talking about.
Yes.
They're not taking care of your right-hand turn, but they're taking care of the left-hand turn.
correct.
They're taking,
Which we're all in favor of.
Which more traffic goes that way than do right.
But that's more than a couple of spaces. I mean, that's going to be a line of trucks when that place opens up down the street.
yeah. But
That's
that's,
going to be
from what I
anything's
gather,
an improvement,
Yeah.
right?
anything is
an-
better
definitely
than what it
improvement.
is.
Anything's an improvement. We couldn't get it to come down to Riverton Road.
I was hoping to talk them into going all the way to 73.
Are you going to have a public? I see you have a public information session, but are you going to have an actual public hearing, or is this it?
So it's kind of I don't know if you, Kim, you want to describe it?
Sorry,
Yeah.
we're coming from another meeting. We're with the Department of Transportation.
Yes,
Office
ma'am.
of Government and Community Relations. We will be having a public open meeting. We're looking at doing sometime towards the third or fourth week of May. Looking, basically try to find a location in between the two, and maybe one of the municipal buildings, whatever one we can do. But we will be sending out notifications to everyone. We usually do 250 feet within the project limit, but however, I always feel that down here, I don't say down here, but in the south, down in Jersey, we're regional more than anything. Because we deal with the traffic from Center City, we deal with the traffic going to the shore. So we're more regionalized. When I look at it as the regional manager, we're more regionalized. So I try to go with 500 feet outside of the project limits, which will cover some of the neighborhoods as well.
Then I ask you guys,
And I'm-
let the town know, because if I hadn't come tonight, I'd have never known this.
And that's what I usually do from my office, my assistant engineer. What we do, we send it over to Eric, and we'll actually put it on the website. We try to get it to YouTube at least 2 weeks in advance. What I want to suggest tonight is that we do a hybrid. That we will have an open house for one night, which will usually run from 6 to 8 p.m., like I said, at one of the municipalities. And then 2 weeks from the day that we had that open house, we'll run it online for 2 weeks on the DOT website. So people that cannot make it still have the opportunity to go online, and they can, email us.
Get the word out here.
Questions, and we'll.
Your newsletter. Make sure your newsletter covers this extensively. Yeah, absolutely. Because, I've been at this for a long time. And I can remember when we didn't want any bikes on 130, and now suddenly we want bikes on 130. And we had sidewalks on 130, and we didn't want sidewalks on 130, so nobody can make up their minds. Seriously.
And I got to tell you, I ride my bike on 130. It's
Well,
not fun.
And so did John McCarthy, and he was always scared to death. But that's,
I would be
that's,
too.
that's essentially,
It's crazy. people
there's
on
there's
130.
been no consistent pattern here in what we're trying to do. And I mean, this has gone through many administrations, and it's a continuing problem because it depends upon who's in charge of transportation up there as to what the main philosophy. And they said that back when I was up there as mayor. So I know what you're talking about. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Good evening, Renee Oler Davis, 2108 Hunter Street. Firstly, I would like to know if there's a possibility of obtaining a copy of this so that we could look at it more closely. It's hard to see from where we are, not necessarily tonight, but at some point. Is that possible?
Is it available to have?
Yeah, it will be marked up preliminary. Again, we are in our conceptual development stage. I'm sorry, speaking for the project manager. We are in our conceptual development stage, so it's everything that you're seeing right now is basically we're trying to prepare to go to preliminary. So all comments that we can get from our council, mayor, administrator, that's good to feed into the project as we move into the next step.
And when the public is able to go to those meetings, I'd like to know, will the public be able to have any impact?
That's the point. That's why
Okay,
we're having, so far, when they showed you on the screen, how we break down and why we're having this in the beginning stage, which is called our concept development stage, is there so that the public can come out, officials can come out, and you can give us your feedback, because that's what we want before we move it into preliminary. So those things can be taken into consideration. Maybe some things can be done, and maybe there's some things that cannot be done. But collaboratively, we're going to do what's best for the community.
Okay, and my vote is for 130 and Union Landing, that turn be widened. It's a very dangerous area with those large trucks going one way and cars turning in the other way. I think there have been several accidents there already, and that's my vote. And the other thing is more bike lanes and pedestrian lanes, the better. One of my cousins was seriously injured on 130 riding a bike.
Sorry to hear that.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to close it. Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
My name's Charles Graber from 1000 Union Landing Road. My concern is Taylor's Lane. You're driving a car and you can't make a right-hand turn. It's very difficult. We have all tractors and trailers, and the traffic without that building being open yet is already bad. So not having a turn lane for tractors and trailers or cars in general is detrimental to the area because people can't make that turn. I know when we were up there, guys go in the left-hand lane to make that right-hand turn to go from heading west to go south. So it's making a public hazard. First of all, the fire department can't get out.
That's been a consideration for quite some time.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been up there, I'm like, how do they get out? And I was talking to someone in the fire department. They cut back around, cut through Delran and come back around the other direction, which isn't always the best scenario, but if you're stuck in traffic, it's very difficult, I find it.
Nope, I understand it, and I absolutely agree. And hopefully, well, at the very least, the changes in the lighting might alleviate that some, and we've brought up the possibility of a turn lane, so we'll see where.
Right, the changing of the lighting, gonna make it, for trucks that I've been up there, everyone grabs the middle lane to make a right-hand turn. And we've already picked up equipment ourselves from people hitting the pole at the corner, so that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else come forward, could I have a motion to close public comment on the presentation item?
I'll make that motion to close public comment on.
I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays, abstentions? Okay. Thank you all for coming down and giving us the overview. Hopefully, we have it for 2029, but at least we have a tentative date. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can move on to committee liaison reports. Committee Member Horner for Finance and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only item I have to report tonight is later on in the meeting. We do have our 2024 municipal budget introduction, but I am happy to report on behalf of the Township Committee, along with the Finance Committee consisting of Committee Member Segrist and myself, that this municipal budget proposed for 2024 does include a zero tax increase for the municipal portion of the tax rate. Of course, just a reminder to the public, the municipal budget is the only budget that this committee has control over. And then specifically, I'd like to thank the department heads as well as the CFO, Julie Edmondson, and then, of course, under direction of our administrator, Eric Schubiger. That concludes my report for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Committee Member Segrist, Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple updates. The Public Works Department is almost out of leaf mulch for residents for the remainder of the year. That's my fault. I used a lot of it. This year, there's an increased amount of traffic at the convenience center, and they'll be replenishing the bin, but it will not be available until late September, early October. The annual Spring Cleanup Day is scheduled for Saturday, May 18th from 8 a.m. to noon. Residents may dispose of the following items: electronics, paint, batteries, no lithium batteries, household trash, white goods and metal, tires, motor and cooking oil, brush and leaves. One more announcement: Fork Landing Road Bridge floodgates have been installed. Residents will no longer see the township orange trash trucks at those intersections. Instead, there'll be new gates, which were recommended by the township engineer. Thank you. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. Committee Member McGill, Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The March 2024 activity report is as follows. Total incidents responded to by the police is 2414. Total arrests made were 27. Total property checks made, that's small, 871, 821, I'm sorry. Total motor vehicle stops made was 325. Total motor vehicle summonses issued with 214. Total DWI arrests 7, and there were Morgan Cemetery calls 1, in which 3 vehicles on location visiting graves moved along, verbally advised of the hours. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Deputy Mayor Cravel, Parks and Recreation and Veterans Affairs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Veterans Affairs, the township is making plans for a Memorial Day ceremony to be tentatively held Friday, May 24th here at Town Hall. Event times and specific program information will be available in the coming weeks. I have a few little updates for Parks and Recreation. Cinnaminson will be hosting a townwide yard sale Saturday, May 18th. Cinnaminson Township May Day is being held Sunday, May 19th from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Wood Park. May Day is for all things Cinnaminson. It's for businesses, organizations, and teams all based in Cinnaminson. Cops and Bobbers is June 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Steele's Pond at Memorial Park. Contractors have begun work on the new pickleball courts at Memorial Park. 3 courts will be constructed, and work is estimated to be completed in early June, weather permitting. And lastly, the construction of the Ravenswood Park tennis courts is scheduled to begin in early May and be completed in early June. Once again, weather permitting. This time of the year we get a lot of rain, so could be a little bit sooner, could be a little bit later. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Cravel. Last and least is myself, Administration and Health and Senior Services. And this evening, I will spare you a report. I have nothing to report. So we can move on to the next item, which is the budget introduction. And this is Resolution 2024-64, the 2024 municipal budget to be advertised in the Burlington County Times. Public hearing is scheduled for May 20th, 2024. May I have a motion to introduce Resolution 2024-64?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion to introduce Resolution 2024-64.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. May I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Roll call vote, Madam Secretary?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Horner.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seagrass.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Craybill.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have a couple of ordinances to introduce. The first one being ordinance 2024-5, authorizing capital improvements appropriating $2,395,000, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate principal amount up to $1,990,250 to be advertised in the Burlington County Times. Public hearing is scheduled for May 20th. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2024-5?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2024-5.
Thank you, Mrs. Cravel. May I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Horner.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seagrass.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Craybill.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye. The next ordinance is 2024-6. It's the 2024 salary ordinance to be advertised in the Burlington County Times. Public hearing scheduled for May 20th. I will make a motion to introduce 2024-6. May I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Horner.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seagrass.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Craybill.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye. Next, we have an ordinance, a public hearing for ordinance. Actually, a public hearing for 3 ordinances, give or take. The first one is ordinance 2024-2, ordinance of the Township of Cinnaminson, amending Chapter 290, provisions for flood hazard reduction of the Township Code to add privately owned salt storage. As a brief explanation, our Township Engineer, Joe Barbadora, has notified us of the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection regulations related to privately owned salt storage. The purpose of regulations is to prevent stored salt and other de-icing materials from being exposed to stormwater. The ordinance establishes requirements for the storage of salt and other solid de-icing materials on municipal properties not owned or operated by the township, which means privately owned, including residences, to protect the environment, public health, safety, and welfare, and to prescribe penalties for the failure to comply. Basically, we can summarize this by saying the state now wants us to have an ordinance to keep your salt in your shed, if you're a residence. If you are a commercial, establishment, you have to come up with a way to keep the salt from essentially melting into the stormwater system. So that's what we're looking at. May I have a motion to open public comment on this ordinance, 2024-2?
I'll make a motion to open public comment on ordinance 2024-2.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. May I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Ms. Cravel. Voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nays? Abstentions? Public comment on ordinance 2024-2 is now open. Please state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one come forward, may I have a motion to close public comment on ordinance 2024-2?
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. I will second that. We have a voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? May I have a motion to approve 2024-2?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-2, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. May I have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call vote, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Horner.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seagrass.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Craybill.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye. Next on the agenda is ordinance 2024-3, the ordinance regulating the removal of trees on private property and amending Chapter 450 of the Township Code entitled Trees. Mr. Barbadoro has also notified the Township of new Department of Environmental Protection regulations related to tree removal. The 2023 Tier A MS4 permit renewal requires permittees to, at a minimum, adopt and enforce a community-wide ordinance to control tree removal and replacement for all types of properties where the municipality has jurisdiction. This ordinance establishes requirements for tree removal and replacement in Cinnaminson Township to reduce soil erosion and pollutant runoff, promote infiltration of water into the soil, and protect the environment, public health, safety, and welfare. May I have a motion to open public comment on ordinance 2024-3?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. I will second that. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions? Nays? Okay. Public comment on ordinance 2024-3 is now open. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ben Young, 116 Woodview Lane, also a trustee for Lakeview Memorial Cemetery, which is probably the most affected party by this ordinance. I have to confess, we're blindsided. I did not know, again, by chance, I came here to find out this is happening. I would ask that you consider tabling this till we've read it. We didn't even know this existed. And we've got probably 40 acres of trees, so I have no clue. And that's all developable land because that's all cemetery, future graves. So I would ask you to please consider tabling this. I haven't even read it, so I don't know what it says. And I had not talked to Joe, or I would have if I'd have known this existed. But I would please encourage you to table this and give us a chance to understand what the ramifications are for Lakeview Cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Would it be prudent to have Mr. Barbadoro kind of explain what's happening here?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, Joe, if you could explain sort of the background and the requirement that has been imposed upon us to help maybe the public understand that part of it too. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
She took some notes here, so. So as the mayor stated, essentially the DEP is requiring the townships adopt a resolution to control the removal and replacement of trees. At the end of the day, if you remove a tree, it needs to be replaced, but there are a lot of exemptions in there. So if it's a dead or dying tree, you would be exempt from the replacement requirement. If you remove less than 3 trees that are smaller than 36 inches in diameter in a 5-year period, you would not be required to replace the trees. And there's also alternatives to the tree replacement. So the way the DEP's model ordinance is set up is if you don't have an area to replant this tree, you could, I believe the cost is $50, would be contributed to a tree fund that the township would open up, which would go towards planting of trees and maintenance of trees throughout the township. So, does that summarize it for you guys? I can.
Joe, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Or just clarification, please? In the ordinance, it states that NJDEP would like this ordinance done either on or before May 1st. Is that correct? So just to clarify?
It is, yeah.
Okay. So this is action that is mandated that we take on or before May 1st?
It is required,
Okay.
yeah, by May 1st.
Thank you. I think that clarification helps.
The DEP has traditionally been flexible with their deadlines,
Okay.
as long as we're showing good faith that we're moving towards this end objective of adopting this ordinance. So just want to keep that in mind for you guys
Thank you.
with your decision tonight with anything. So,
Okay.
all right?
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we just move forward with this? I mean, we've got till May 1st, and there's not a meeting between now and then.
I know, but the way he made it sound is they're still gonna, it's not like we're gonna get penalized.
Yeah,
No.
if we can hold
Mr.
off
Mayor,
on
we
it.
can hold off.
If we can hold off.
May I ask Mr. Barbador another question?
Sure.
Joe, so if the township does not pass this ordinance, what could happen to the township?
Technically, if by May 1st we don't pass the ordinance, And if the DEP does enforce that deadline, we would be subject to fines of, I believe it is $37,500 per day per violation. Is the technical fine for that.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oof.
So, I've been involved over the years with a tree ordinance in Moorestown, Ben Young, of course, 160. And they have a tree ordinance where they limit you to like to 2 trees per acre per year or something you could remove without consequences. To my knowledge, because my client would have called me immediately, this has not been proposed in Moorestown yet. So not everybody's rushing to this decision. And maybe there is a May 1 deadline at the DEP, but I can tell you Moorestown would be on top of it if it were, because they had a tree ordinance long before anybody else did. This is a big, big, big deal, trust me. I don't know exactly, and Joe probably would know, anybody that's been up to the cemetery recently knows that we started to prepare the site for the next addition to the mausoleum. And I mean, I cleared 10,000 feet of trees out of there. And we've probably got about 30 acres left of undeveloped land that has trees on, which have just grown, not that they were ever planted, they just grown there wild over the years and we've left them. But this is a really big deal, folks. For us anyway. It may not be for anybody else, but it is for the cemetery. And I can speak for the trustees that if they knew about this, I did not, but if they knew about this, they would be very concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to add something, actually. Ben brings up a good point. So in the ordinance, it specifically states that any tree removals associated with a development or redevelopment project, the tree planting and removal requirements would be settled at the planning board level as part of that review for that. So just so you guys know.
Okay. Thank you.
Joe, if I might, just, you could stay seated, please. If you mentioned good faith, like, what does that mean? If we could show NJDEP that we have an ordinance in place, but we had a concern brought to our attention regarding a really large parcel in town and how that could impact them, so we kind of just wanted to work through that. Is that good faith?
Yeah, I mean, I could go to the DEP and say, hey, we have the ordinance up for adoption. We received some community feedback. We want to rework a little things, a couple of things. We're not going to make the May deadline, but here's the next date that we would like to adopt this ordinance at. So as long as, we keep showing progress, we keep them updated on where we're at, typically they won't come down with those penalties.
Thanks, Joe.
I think
Glass
we are
half full.
considering holding off on this at this point.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Segenario, what would be the ramifications of tabling this now? Does it have to be reintroduced?
No.
So we can table it now,
Yep.
take a look at it, reassess it, take it to hearing on May 6th.
Have another public hearing on it.
How about if we give you a week to take down all the trees, Ben?
I gotta tell you, in all seriousness, when Moorestown introduced this ordinance, and I don't know if you voted to hear me on the record, when they introduced this ordinance, when I tried to put a coalition together to put a package together for the industrial, Bruce Toll clear cut 9 acres one weekend. Because he said Moorestown hated Toll anyway. He clear cut his land, he didn't go.
Wow.
And it's a very difficult situation. I appreciate your consideration because I know it's tough for you in this situation.
All right, so
can schedule the public hearing for the next meeting if you'd like.
Okay, but what do we have to do with this now?
Table it.
Make a motion to table it? Do we need to make a motion to table it?
Yes.
That's it? Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion to table ordinance 2024-3?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to table ordinance 2024-3 until first May meeting.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Can I have that seconded?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Horner.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seeger.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, do I have to close public comment yet on this?
No.
Okay.
You're done.
Ordinance 2024-4. Ordinance vacating, releasing, and extinguishing any and all public rights to a portion of the street known as Berry Street, located between Block 301, Lot 1, and Block 302, Lot 1, and consisting of .21 acres within the Township of Cinnaminson, subject to certain terms and conditions. This one is that representatives of Chick's Towing Service contracted the township to discuss their request for the township to vacate a portion of Berry Street. The cross street is Inman. To assist with future site improvement plans, Economic Development Committee and the appropriate township professionals have reviewed the request and determined that the portion of the roadway in question is not needed for public purposes. Thus, the Economic Development Committee recommends that the governing body approve the vacation of the property. May I have a motion to open public comment on ordinance 2024-4?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to open up public comment on ordinance 2024-4.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. I will second that. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, public comment on 2024-4 is now open. Please state your name and address for the record. Okay, quickly. Seeing no one come forward, may I have a motion to close public comment on ordinance 2024-4?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Can I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, I will make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-4. May I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, ma'am. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Horner.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seeger.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye. Okay, this brings us to the consent agenda, which is surprisingly short this evening. Resolution 2024-65 authorizes the award of contract for shade structures through state contract from Martirano Recreation Company, Incorporated. Public Works Superintendent Kevin Gaunt has secured pricing for the purchase of shade structures for East Riverton Park. Ms. Edmondson has determined that this purchase requires a resolution of the governing body and that sufficient funding is available, and recommends that the governing body authorize the award of the contract to state contract vendor Martirano Recreation in the amount of $15,292.72. Resolution 2024-66 is authorization of cancellation of taxes for a totally disabled veteran, Block 1916, Lot 1. Tax assessor Dennis DeClerc has confirmed that the property owner meets the criteria for eligibility for this benefit and recommends authorization by the governing body. And one raffle, St. Charles Borromeo from 6/10/24 to 6/15/24. And that is the end of the consent agenda. I will make a motion to open public comment on the consent agenda items only. May I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. A voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Public comment on the consent agenda is now open. Please state your name and address for the record. Oh, come on.
Psych.
Seeing no one come forward, may I have a motion to close public comment on the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cravel. Voice vote, please. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. I will second that. Approval of minutes. Roll call? Okay, roll call vote, please. All in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, hold on. Oh, this is adoption. Duh, roll call. Go ahead.
Aye again.
Miguel.
Aye.
Mr. Seeger.
Aye again.
Deputy Mayor Cravel.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye.
Thank you.
It's been a long meeting already. We'll move to the approval of minutes for April 1st, 2024. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 1st, 2024?
Make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve minutes for April 1st, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. May I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Mr. Horner.
Abstain.
Thank you. Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seeger.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Cravel.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye.
Thank you.
On to the approval of bills. May I have a motion to approve the bill list?
Make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve the bill list.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. May I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Horner.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Seeger.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Cravel.
Aye.
Mayor Condon.
Aye. Thinking about it? Do we have any comments from our professionals or staff this evening? No? Gentlemen? Okay. And that being the case, may I have a motion to open public comment?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to open public comment.
May I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Voice vote, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay. Public comment is now open. Please state your name and address for the record. Oh, this time for real, huh?
Ben Young, 116 Woodview Lane. First of all, what I'd like to do is express our sincere thanks from the Dan Nardone Bocce Club for the bocce balls. We really appreciate it. They're very excited. They're so excited they haven't opened them yet, but because they go anticipation is the best part of the deal. So we thank you, Deputy Mayor, for helping us get that achieved. We really appreciate it. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, and Kevin may be aware of this, because if you go down to the brush yard, you know, a while back, probably a month or 6 weeks ago, the towing company, Flanagan, lost their building on 130, right there at the curve behind Wharton's. And they've since rented O'Hare's building across the street from us on Whitmore Street. And they're using that to function out of, which I appreciate and understand their issues but they also have an operation on Collins Avenue down in Pennsauken. If any of you have ever gone to see it, it's starting to happen on Whitmore Street. Tonight there's 3 trucks parked out on Whitmore Street. Now I know there's no restricted parking, but I think a little bit like going back to Randolph Street where we no parking overnight. If you recall, from 6 to 6 or whatever it was, I think you might give some consideration to that, because that can only get worse, because this is way smaller than that yard they had in Pennsauken. So I think it's something to be concerned about. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
No? Okay, seeing no one else come forward, may I have a motion to close public comment?
I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Thank you, Mrs. Cravel. I will second that. Voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, public comment is closed. Committee comment. Do we have any comments from the members of committee this evening?
I just have one comment,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Deputy Mayor Cravel for all the hard work on the bocce courts that are underway at Memorial Park. I know that was a long time coming. I know she went back and forth with members of the public as to where the best location would be, took a lot of feedback. So I want to commend her for.
The bocce or the pickleball?
Excuse me.
If we move
Ben
the
said-
bocce,
I know.
If we move the bocce, of course, Ben's going to get
Sorry,
upset.
Ben. Sorry, Ben. I meant pickleball. Excuse me. I got a text message this morning from somebody that runs the pickleball over at Riverton Country Club. Super excited that he now is seeing construction there. So I want to thank Deputy Mayor Cravel for all her efforts with that.
Okay. Mr. Segrist?
Nothing for me, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. McGill?
Believe it or not, no.
Whoa. You okay? You feeling all right?
I'm feeling fine.
Mr. Grable?
Nothing this evening.
Okay, I have nothing as well. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Can I have a second for that?
I'll second. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Next meeting is Monday, May 6th, 2024 at 6:30 PM, right here. Thanks for coming, everyone.
What's going on outside of the